All right, here we go. Overdrive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker. And up on TSN 4, Brian Hayes, Dave Festruck of the Toronto Star, Jamie Noodles McLennan. How are we feeling on a beautiful Friday here in Toronto? Beautiful day in Toronto.
Love the weather.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Borderline golf weather, outdoor tennis weather, maybe a little pickleball, right?
Yeah.
Pickleball's big these days. Absolutely.
You into it?
Never. I've only played it once, and it was in Florida, and it was all right. You know, it was okay. I mean, it's so popular now, right? Like everyone, if you're into pickleball, it's my understanding is like it's basically a lifestyle. You need to let everyone know you play pickleball.
I don't understand. Is it just tennis for lazy people?
Yes.
Like just slowing?
Exactly.
Like that's what it is.
It's half-court tennis, Noodles.
It's slower because you can't hit the ball as hard because the ball's like lighter. Like
Right.
it doesn't move as fast. Is that what it is?
I saw a clip. Scotty Scheffler was playing what I believe was the number one ranked pickleball player in the world, which is shocking to me that there's a ranking.
Oh, yeah.
Because I thought it was only, basically South Florida and Arizona and stuff. It was basically retirees that were playing pickleball. I didn't realize it was actually a ranking system. And I saw a point where Scotty Scheffler, dusted this guy.
Wow.
And he was kind of laughing after, but you could tell he was kind of embarrassed because the shoe would never be on the other foot.
No.
Like the number one pickleball player in the world is not going to Augusta and playing a one-hole challenge against Scotty Scheffler and beating him.
No,
it's not going to happen,
Not
let alone playing 18. I think Scheffler kind of dusted this guy, and it was not a good sign for pickleball, right?
No.
Like you can't have non-professionals beat up on the number one player in the world. You can't have it. It's bad for the sport.
That's terrible.
yeah.
Has there ever been that's pros versus Joes, and the Joe actually wins,
Right.
handily? That's not good.
That can't happen.
No, it's not good
cannot
because
happen.
there's no way Scotty Scheffler's walking on the court with Djokovic and beating him.
No, never.
At Wimbledon.
Never.
You're not taking a point off Djokovic.
No.
Or Nadal.
You'd never take a
Not
point
even
off
close.
him. Not even close to
Not
taking
even
a point.
close.
And Scheffler, it was like a doubles match. It was probably a charity thing. But I could be wrong on this, but I swear I saw this.
Okay.
And the number one
I
guy.
hope you're wrong.
I
really
hope I'm
you're
wrong too, Noodles. I hope I'm wrong too for the sanctity of pickleball that I'm wrong on this. But the number one player was kind of pretending like he's joking around, but he was being serious. And Scheffler was moving him around, and Scheffler won the point. I know that for a fact. Okay. And if that's maybe that is the sales pitch for pickleball, that it really is the epitome of parity. Anyone can beat anybody if you're playing pickleball. It's for everybody. The number one player in the world, it's meaningless because he can get dusted by almost anyone. Well, what other sport do you think you could walk onto the field and play? There's a couple of sports where you might get lucky.
Yeah, golf is the one. You could step up on a par 3 and just hit the shot of your life.
I guess so.
And get it closer than Scotty Scheffler.
Right. Although you might get so nervous standing over that 5-foot putt that you actually, shank it, and he ends up finding a way to either saw you off or beating you. But you're right. That could happen.
Didn't that happen to Rory though? Where was that? What a fan came out where he was putting and he went to a crowd member. Was like, "Can you do better?"
That was at the Ryder Cup.
It was
the Ryder Cup. The guy came out with jeans. It was unreal. Actually, it's a great clip. That was a great clip. Yeah.
Yeah. So it can happen.
It can.
We all believe. I'll be sitting on the couch watching a Raptors game and Pascal will miss one. I'm I could make that.
Yes.
You in your mind, you're I could do it. And there would be zero chance that you could do it at that point. In that competition, somebody leaning on you, all of that. You'd get absolutely dusted. It's the same thing in hockey. There's people I would have scored that empty net or I would have done that. You don't know how you would feel in that particular situation. So I don't know. Pickleball might be a different thing. I don't want all the pickleball people coming after me where I said it's
I'll take them. What are they going to do?
People.
What the hell are they going to do?
Because
pickleball people are going to do anything.
Craig Button will drive to the studio and attack you.
Come on up, Craig. Come on up, Craigie. I love you, man. But pickleball, I'll take you on. I don't care. I'll be the first guy in history to be a pickleball antagonist. I don't think anyone's ever held that title.
You know what?
I'm happy to hold that title.
I don't want it.
The other one is free throw shooting, right?
Right.
You like to shoot a few baskets. Hayes, I know you do, and I do too. And you see the Raptors; they're bottom of the league in free throw shooting right now.
It's infuriating to watch.
69%. It's I can do better than 69%.
Right.
give me 10 shots, I will make 7. I guarantee you I will make 7.
Yeah.
Even with like 20,000 people in the States, it's not hard.
Well,
it's not a hard shot.
Very hard for me. I would not make 7. I would make 2.
You think you'd make 2 noodles?
Yeah,
Yeah,
a couple
that
air
seems-
balls and a couple bricks. Like it would not be good.
You're right,
though. I don't think I have like the loft on my son. We play out on the driveway. I don't have a loft. Like I just throw it right at the basket. It's not very.
Okay.
You're
It's
throwing
not
just
pretty.
missiles off
Yeah,
the backboard.
I'm a 2. Yeah, I'm a 2. for
Okay,
sure.
so 2 out of 10 for you at the line. But I agree with you. I think
7
I'd
probably.
go 7 for 10.
I might make
I think
8.
I
Like,
would.
You can find a lot of people shooting baskets at the YMCA.
Yes.
That can go 7, 8 for 10.
I agree,
You
especially
can find a
if
lot of guys who can go 10 for 10.
if you get in a rhythm or
Yeah.
you know what you're doing, and obviously you put a little bit of practice in. Like these guys are NBAers. These guys, this is literally what they do for a living. Anyway, Raptors are in Boston tomorrow. They play the Celtics twice in the next,
Yeah.
I guess, 6 days.
2 of the
'cause-
next 4.
Yeah, they've got
So-
2 of the next 4 against Boston. And next Friday will be the opening of the in-season tournament for the
Yes.
Raptors. And I guess there's
Special
already
court.
a glitch down in Dallas. They couldn't find a way to get the special court for tonight.
Yeah.
And their explanation is something happened. Like there's no explanation.
No.
It's just, there was a glitch. We couldn't get it done.
Not ready.
It's not ready for some reason, which I can't quite figure out. It's not like this is the kind of stuff that will make Adam Silver's head pop off because he's so desperate to make this work.
Oh, yeah.
This is his baby. Like this is a legacy
Right.
piece for Adam Silver. He's the first North American commissioner that's trying something completely unique and different, and basically taking a page out of European football and saying, "This is what they do.
Yeah.
They've been doing it forever. We're going to get out in front of it, and we're going to be the first one to do it." And in the first game, Mark Cuban's like, "Hey, I can't get the court ready."
Yeah.
So
And Denver had a court where the 3-point line was the wrong distance.
great. That's a great start.
Although they did, to their credit, they repainted it before the game and got it together, in
Seems
time.
kind of necessary
Yeah.
if you're going to have a professional NBA game to actually have the dimensions of the court
and get
be
it
accurate.
proper. Like I feel like I've seen that before on like football or something where somebody messed the lines up and they're like trying to erase them and like I swear in the history of games that there has been stuff like that where it should be just. Shouldn't that be physics? Like, just lay it out there and go, you need X amount of feet from there, round it out. Like, I don't know.
Absolutely.
How do you
Oh,
screw
yeah.
that up?
It's a good question, Noodles. The NBA's been around for a long time. The 3-point line, a long time. And I'm not quite certain how you messed that
Every
up.
once in a while, like you maybe a few years back, I think the rims are better now and the backboards are better, but there used to be discrepancies. Like you'd go to an NBA game, you'd be sitting around before the game, and the players would be shooting in warm-ups, and they'd go like, this isn't 10 feet.
You're right.
This isn't 10 feet. And they'd have to get the measuring tape out, they'd get the ladder out, and sure enough,
Yeah.
no, it's not 10 feet. It's 10 foot 2. Oh, we're going to have to lower the rim.
Yeah.
That's
definitely
I've
happened
seen that
before.
happen with my own eyes.
I've seen that, I
does
think,
happen.
as well, where they like these guys know exactly
Oh, yeah.
what they should be looking at. So anyway, Raptors in action tomorrow. The Leafs with a 2-pack of games, 2 Canadian games back-to-back at Scotiabank. This has the chance to be a great weekend because the Hall of Fame game tonight, so all the Hall of Famers are going to be in attendance. I find Friday nights in Toronto are big nights, generally like great crowds, loud crowds. Calgary's in town. Tomorrow it's Vancouver, and tomorrow's Remembrance Day, so they'll certainly have a Remembrance Day ceremony before the game, which will obviously have a different tone to it, but still will, I think, make it a special night. And you've got Vancouver, who's pace car in this country.
Yeah.
I mean, they did it again last night. All they do is every shot on net they score.
I know.
Like
Crazy.
Vancouver, you were there, Noodles. You were calling it. 2 shots, 2 goals. Ottawa was like, we're done. See you later. Thanks for coming out.
That's how the game started. It was, 26 seconds in. They have this rush play, and it goes wide, and it looked to me like Forsberg makes this ridiculous save. And then in my mind, I'm like, I think his glove went over the line.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and sure enough, like I went and talked back to Sam Cicerello. I'm like, I think that might have gone over the line. And I was trying to plead my case, like joking at the fans going, when you make a save like that, sometimes you just should get the benefit of the doubt. You make this ridiculous save, and then there's like, oh, the puck's just over the line in the webbing of your glove. But they called it back. And you're right. Like Vancouver, like I can't remember what the total shots were. I think it was like 32-15. And they won 5-2.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
I'm pretty sure I want to say their 4th goal was on their 12th shot. I believe it was. And that would have been the Pettersson one-timer, I believe.
Yeah.
And that was a bomb. But, like, just credit to Vancouver because, yes, everyone looks at it and says at some point it's going to regress. But if you bank enough points, you can just ride that mediocre wave all the way to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And Vancouver's doing that, and they're thoroughly entertaining. And they're in town tomorrow. Calgary's at a different end of the spectrum. But when you consider what's happening in the province of Alberta right now, that Heritage Classic game was almost 2 weeks ago. Noodles, you were there.
Yep.
Edmonton dominated that game. It was an outdoor game. I think they won 5-2.
Yeah.
And the belief was, here we go.
Get
Edmonton's alive. Edmonton's going to take off now. Calgary is officially finished, dead in the water. See you later. And it's been the complete opposite.
Yeah.
Now Calgary's won 2 in a row coming into the game tonight, and we know what happened last night. Like that's the most embarrassing regular season loss I can think of in a long time. Edmonton losing to San Jose in regulation, and I'm sure I had the same experience that many other people did. I went to bed; it was 1-1. Nurse scored. It's 1-1. And the reason I went to bed partially because I'm like, I just can't keep watching this.
Yeah.
And it was
I
late.
watched the full game.
Well, that's you're into torture or something, man. Because I was like, I can't do it, but B, I was like, all right, they're gonna win 5-1 now. Like I don't need to watch because
That's what I thought.
they're gonna crush this team
That's
now.
what I thought.
They scored. They've come alive. And I woke up the next morning. And I checked out my phone, and they lost 3-2 in reg. I'm like, I can't believe
How can
it.
this be?
I can't believe it.
Self-inflicted gun wounds. Like it's literally you create a bunch of chances. I will say that's the best McDavid's looked in a while. Like he looked a little bit more healthier and had some speed. Like in the second, they created a bunch of chances, but like they would have, like we were just talking about Vancouver. Ottawa would have some looks in that come down in the net. You're like one mistake, and it's like that's the one. And the second goal is an epitome of the Edmonton Oilers season right now. Guy throws it towards the net. It's going wide. It hits a skate and right to Hurdle on the back door. He goes, I'll put this in, fires it in the net. And you can see how fragile that team is. It was like just air coming out of a balloon again. And you're like, oh my God, they're in one here. And you're right. Like, would that be, I know, like I think San Jose, they'll end up with, what's the 20 wins?
Yeah,
They'll end up with 25
maybe.
wins.
50 points or something, probably.
Well, that's what Colorado did that year. And what did they do? With 48 points, they get 23 wins?
Something like that. A bunch of tie. They'll lose in overtime.
You think that's
shootouts.
the Oilers' David Ayres game?
Yeah, well, I think so based on the scenario, Noodles. Like the David Ayres was obviously so unique, so ridiculous, but the
Right.
Leafs were well on the way to the playoffs, I believe. I don't remember, all the details, but obviously they made the playoffs. We know they have
Right.
for 7 straight years. What made last night so much worse, I think, for Edmonton is that they were 2-8-1 going into it. The sky was falling. Everyone's job was at stake, or it seemed that way, although that's not going to be the case. Jay Woodcroft is going to coach tomorrow night in Seattle. And obviously the GM, Ken Holland, is still there, and they haven't made any major
I
changes.
wouldn't fire it. Why would you fire the coach? I don't know why they're even talking about
Well,
that.
2-9-1, Noodles, at some point, something's going to give. It's either a mercy firing, which has happened countless times in pro sports. It's not even
Right.
about the job that Woodcroft's doing or
No.
how you feel about him. It's just, this is so absurd. We're so embarrassed. The owner just called and you have to go.
Gotta change
Like,
something.
that's
fair.
what happened.
That makes a
Gotta
good
change
point.
something.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, you're right.
That's
Like,
what, yeah. And there's something going on there. Like you mentioned McDavid, and like Draisaitl after the game is incredibly dejected. They all are, and they deserve to be.
Yeah.
They should be. It's 2-9-1. What do you expect them to say? Of course they're
Right,
upset.
right.
But I'm sure you saw the isolated shift in the first period that's gone viral. That first goal, Draisaitl was just floating around.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
an awful
Didn't look
look.
good.
An awful look. I remember a shift Pierre-Luc Dubois had a couple years ago where we carved it and it was justified. I'm sorry. That is an awful look for Leon Draisaitl. Awful.
Yeah.
Like he's just floating around and then he goes to the bench and acting all pissy and he's in a bad place, man. And
Checked out.
yeah, and I think that's the concern. And again, I'm not sitting here saying Woodcroft isn't the right. They're throwing a lot at the net. They can't get a stop still.
Yeah.
That wasn't necessarily the issue last night, but their goaltending's been historically bad. And there have been breakdowns defensively. But 2-9-1 for a team that had cup aspirations is wild.
It's terrible.
It's wild, Noodles. Like,
Yeah,
they have 5
there's no-
points, man. It's November
there's-
10th.
There's no getting around it. It's been a terrible start. Like they're not playing well. Like
Right.
to a man, it's awful. Like their top players. Like there was a stat today. I wrote it down because I was in comparison to last year. So October 7th to November 10th last year, McDavid had 31 points, which was first in the NHL. This year he's got 10 points. Now, given he's missed 2 games, but 10 points, he's 107th in the league in scoring.
That is wild.
Amazing.
Draisaitl had 27 points, right behind him for second in the NHL last year, same time frame. He's got 15 points for 24th in the NHL. He's got points, but he not points that mean something, that are game-changing points that we could talk about. So until those guys, I wasn't on the show yesterday. Like, I don't know what you guys talked about, but Sheldon Keefe's comments is like, yeah, you could talk about, Matthews' stats and Nylander stats. We need to play better D.
Yeah.
Until those two, and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Kane and Hyman and all the guys they pay money to play better, they're not digging themselves out. Bottom line, that's the way I see it.
Yeah,
I don't.
I'm
see
with
it
you
that
on
way.
that. And like you mentioned, Keefe's comments yesterday, and now Sheldon today has put on a kind of a different face where he's trying to be positive. He's trying to speak up their defensive play. And like, I don't disagree with the overall picture of the Leafs. I said it yesterday in that game against Ottawa. I didn't think they played poorly. I thought there were acute moments that were horrendous.
Yeah.
Like,
Right,
and
right.
Klingberg was at the forefront of
He
a lot
was.
of that. And now all of a sudden he's hurt and he's been Bobby Bonning it for 13 games. I find that hard to believe,
No.
but I think it's the right play for the Leafs. Like, I'm sure he's nicked up, banged up, but if you say it's an injury, what it does is it relieves the embarrassment of saying we're benching the guy, not only for him, but the front office as well. And what it does is it opens the door for him to miss tomorrow, the next game if need be.
Yeah,
and it's
that's
not
a healthy scratch for me.
That's
Like,
exactly what it is. But it's a way to get out of it, Noodles. It's a classic. The Leafs are the best at this because we're not healthy scratching him.
No.
He's still great. He's just been
Except
injured,
he
and he'll be injured
practiced
tonight.
Well,
He participated in practice yesterday. And
Yeah.
it was like he was a full participant in practice. Nobody mentioned any.
Talking with the
injuries.
media, he's like, I got to get
Yeah.
back in there and play. And now all of a sudden, again, Bobby
Yeah.
Bond, he's been banged up and he's been
Right.
grinding.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it's a classic move. I love it.
It is. Like, I don't mind. Listen, you're protecting your players. I
Exactly.
don't mind that. Like, that's laying in traffic for your players. Going,
Mm-hmm.
you know what? He's been fighting through something, which they did shut him down at training camp. But the bottom line is, when you put the jersey on, you're expected to be at 100% or play to your capability. He hasn't. So I don't mind him taking a pause. McCabe coming back helps because it helps the group. He's a good player that can play in the second pairing. And, it pushes Klingberg out right now, or you trade that player. You basically, Klingberg comes out, McCabe going in, and let's see what McCabe's got. But Klingberg hasn't been good enough.
No.
Clear cut.
And he hasn't helped his line mate as well. With him and Gio, it's been a tough go when it was him and Gio. So you know what? I come around it, and I don't know how I hope I didn't pivot it from Edmonton to Toronto, but Edmonton, their players have to play better. That's why I'm sure Ken Holland's sitting there. You're right. I could do the mercy fire. But what if they're looking at hiring somebody who's under contract already, or who has stuff to work through? Like, I'm trying to think of names, and Joel Quenneville has stuff to work through.
Mm-hmm.
Daryl Sutter is still under contract. I'm looking at players that are coaches that have stuff. Gerard Gallant, I think he's still being paid by the Rangers.
Yeah,
correct?
he is.
So that's
Yeah, he is.
but like
Yeah.
I still am on the mindset with Ken Holland is, I think he'd rather be patient and go, let's see if my top players can dig us out here, instead of firing a coach that got hired a year ago or a year and a half ago, whatever it was.
Well,
right?
and now it's about check marks, right? Like, they're going to
Right.
say all the right things. And listen, they're not the only team dealing with this in this country. Ottawa's back in it. Ottawa got a big win the night before. Last night they lose in reg. So they're back to process. The Leafs, the same thing. The Leafs are 6-5-2. Boston won again last night.
Last 5 of 6. I mean,
Yeah, they're not a juggernaut, yet what you got to do is the Leafs are in a better place than those other teams I just mentioned because they have bank points. And, Tampa lost last night, and they're in a similar position to the one they've been in for years now, through 10 games, 12 games, 15 games. But if you're the Oilers, you're probably looking at, what can we do? How do we get back to 500? And then once you get back to 500, can you get the final 30, 40 games of the season, can you really get humming and salvage a season? Like, that's where they have to be at. They've only played 13 games. So, yeah, I mean, but sadly for the Canadian hockey fans outside of Vancouver and Winnipeg, who won again last night, all these markets are like, okay, doing math already.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well, they're-
what's going to happen here? What are they going to do?
Here's
But
the
there's
question.
70 games left, and
I
people
know.
have got their calculators out. You're
I
going like,
know.
"What are we doing here?"
I
I think it's fascinating though, because it's not wrong in all of these markets that are struggling to be pissed, because you're sitting there going, "Well, at least we have an expectation, and you're not achieving it." But in Ottawa, like I thought they played well against the Leafs last night. In a back-to-back situation, they didn't start quick, and then they tried to dig themselves back out of it. It just didn't work. But they've got to keep chipping away. They're not afforded the luxury of going, we've seen them at their top. They're a playoff team here and there. Like, that's why I think there are people that are going, well, Edmonton will eventually, those two guys will eventually, we've seen them at least go on a run. We've seen the Leafs, when they're at the top of their game. Like, you've seen some of these teams that have done it. You're like, okay, we've got a benchmark. You don't have a benchmark with some of these teams. So you're like, okay, that's what we know. What we know is what's in front of you. That's where Ottawa's facing. Calgary, just based on recency. Last year they didn't make the playoffs, but it's a little bit, and Ottawa's the same situation. To me,
exactly.
that's how I feel.
No, that's
Wow.
it is what, like the Leafs have more.
Sample size.
Yeah,
They've
more
been there.
and more of. I think they should have. There should be more support for the idea that they'll turn this thing around, because the
Well-
same script has been playing out year after
Yeah,
year.
except it's a little different this year when you look at the D, right?
The personnel is different.
That's
and
what I was
the
gonna say.
Their
underlying
defense is
numbers.
not good.
And the question, Noodles, I had for you is like, which fan base, because you get around the country more than
Yeah.
Hayes and I, which fan base is cursing Brad Treliving louder? Is it Calgary, where they're not too happy with the way Huberdeau's playing and the way Nazem Kadri's been playing, or is it Toronto, where all his free agent signings have essentially flopped to this point?
Well, I would say there's not a relationship yet in Toronto. He's newer on the job, so the cursing might be louder here, just based on like you said, there's not one thing so far from his signings where you're like, okay, that guy's a perfect fit for this organization. Now, I want to give, I said this before, I want to give Tyler Bertuzzi a longer leash. Scored the other night, seemed to get a little bit more of jump in his step. Max Domi starts to be settling in. Like, there are some guys, but I think it's Toronto, because you're looking at it and going, okay, Reeves line, and Reeves gets circled unfairly because he's one of three on that line, but he gets circled, and then Klingberg gets circled, and those are two very polarizing. Like, I'm sure you talked about it. I saw some of the clips
yeah.
yesterday. Right, Klingberg, the number 3.
Oh,
Like,
it's extreme, man.
man.
It really is. Like, it couldn't be a worse.
it's Larry
first
Murphy right
impression.
now. It's the Larry Murphy
Yeah.
treatment almost.
Yeah,
It's
it really
tough.
is. No, it's
Yeah,
happened this quickly, and it's unanimous. Like, there's no one that can sit there and say, I support what's happening, because defensively he's
Yeah.
played so poorly, and offensively he hasn't been a juggernaut whatsoever. So, yeah, that is like Bertuzzi, I believe, will work. I believe that will work. I believe he's
Yeah.
a good player. I think you got to give him time to transition. I think he's found his, and I don't think he's been a detriment on the ice. I don't think you look at him and say, wow, that's costing them. Max Domi, I think, is better in the middle of the ice, and we'll see how long they stay committed to that. But I think he's played pretty well the last few games. But Reeves and Klingberg are extreme. Like, it's really, really loud around those guys quickly.
Right.
And that's on the front office. Like, that, those were July 1st signings.
Yep.
And we see how they've played out. All right, Jason Strudwick is going to be on the show today. Struddy,
Rightfully so.
as he should be, right? This
Yeah.
is Struddy's time to shine, man.
Right.
We can't wait forever until Edmonton gets a win. I'd prefer they won so we could have Struddy on, but they never win. So maybe what we should do is Struddy is hit the draft lottery simulator.
There you go.
Should we hit the simulator with Struddy and see if they can get that? Is it Celebrini that they're?
Yeah.
That's who they're going for first overall. He looked good on McDavid's wing next year. We'll see what Struddy's saying about where the Oilers are at. Bunch of Canadian teams. Again, bunch of Canadian teams are not exactly feeling great about where they're at. Leafs Flames tonight. We'll tee that up. Leafs Canucks tomorrow. We'll look ahead to that as well. We've got picks for the rest of the week. Last night's Thursday nighter played out exactly how we thought last night's Thursday nighter would play out. So we'll look back on that a little bit as well. And the Argos are in action tomorrow, playoff action tomorrow at BMO Field. Ryan Dinwiddie coming up, head coach of the Argos at 6:05. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Brian Hayes, Jamie Noodles, McLennan, Dave Feschuk of the Toronto Star in here. Leafs, Flames tonight. Leafs, Canucks tomorrow. Oilers, Seattle tomorrow. Seattle is, I guess,
beat Colorado last night.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to
4-3.
say, like, Edmonton's chasing them down. Edmonton's got to find a way to get points tomorrow night.
You're
But-
chasing everybody when you're
Yeah.
second last or tied for last in the league.
Tied
You're-
for last.
Like you're looking up at everybody. So there's no gimmies. There's no easy nights. I said this was it 2 days ago to you and Hayes. Like you guys are like, it's 8-0. I said I don't think so. I felt I had that feeling in watching it, and then San Jose gets that win against Philly, and Mackenzie Blackwood, who's a good goaltender, stopped 38 saves against Philly, and I'm like, if this guy does it again, and he made some really big
He
saves
did.
last night,
They
I'm
threw
like,
a lot of shots on him.
but I'm like, you know what? You got to find a way. Didn't do it, but at some point you got to dig out if you're going to dig out, and that's the.
Maybe they won't. Who knows?
knows?
I mean, at this point, it's not looking great. Maybe Struddy starts to make plans for like mid-April, right? Start teeing it up.
Wow.
Here's Jason Strudwick, co-host of the Got Your Back podcast. How we feeling out there, Struddy?
Oh, buddy, it's uneasy. It's really uneasy. I'll tell you that. It's like Noodles when he sees the gym. He knows he should go in, but he's not sure if he wants to. He's not sure if he wants to.
Yeah, I hear you.
It's rough. It's rough, buddy. It is. You know what? The fans, and everyone is like, hey, they're going to turn around. They're going to turn around after game 2 or 4 or 6 or 8. Well, now we're a dozen deep, and they haven't turned it around. So, is this the team? Like, is this who they are, or are they last year's team, right? And every game that goes by where they don't show that signs of turning around and being the stability that we've seen and the way they play and all that, it just creates a little bit more doubt. And the worst part, not into the fans' heads, that's only one part. The worst part is the heads of those players and coaches.
Yeah, that's what's wild.
Yeah.
Like they're obviously miserable, which is what you would expect. But now they're getting questions after the game, like, do you think you're going to be fired? Do you think major change is going to happen? Draisaitl just wants to drop kick everyone in the scrum. Like it's wild, isn't it? I mean, I'm not sure what else they're supposed to say. And quite frankly, I don't think if you're an Oilers fan, you even care to see them or hear them. You just want to see them find a way to win a hockey game at this point.
After they lost last year in the playoffs, there was talk about being better defensively and being harder and protecting 1-goal leads or 2-1 leads, whatever it was. Come back with training camp. They all come back early. It's the same narrative. Everyone's talking about this idea of this. We're going to be harder to play against, defensively tight. They implement a new system, and I want to be clear. I don't think the system change is a huge thing. Like, it's not like they reinvented the wheel, but all you're talking about is being better and more harder to play against, and it's been the opposite. And we haven't seen it from night one when Vancouver absolutely ripped the lid off them. They haven't seen anything, right? They haven't been their normal selves or what we've come to expect of them. And so it's across the board: power play, penalty kill, 5-on-5 back checking, pinching, D-zone coverage, goalies. Like there is nothing going right. Maybe Fogle, he's probably a guy you can say is playing well, but man, it's just everyone's in a slump, including the coaches.
So, Struddy, if you had to be in that room and just say, where do we start? One thing, because there's 10 things you can point to. But if there's one, what do you start with? Where would you say, like, we're going to start here, guys?
Well, I think in the dressing room, you start with bringing energy, right? There's quite a few players on this team that are quite quiet in nature, right? They're not outgoing and boisterous. You need to bring energy, and it's everybody. Because when you're losing like this, it's like a black hole for energy. It just sucks the life out of you. And when something goes wrong, it's waiting for something else to go wrong. So that's number one, bringing energy. Then on the ice, I'd say step out of your comfort zone, right? Whatever your comfort zone is, whatever it is you do, step out of it. So maybe you're a goal scorer and you're not scoring, drive the net hard. Get in the blue paint. Get an ugly one. If you're a D-man, just keep hitting guys. Get in people's faces. Like, just try to turn so you have some foundation to play off of. You look at that San Jose Shark team last night. I mean, spent a lot of time on Hockey DB identifying everybody. I mean, people probably did it to me in the past too, but you're trying to figure out who everybody is and trying to sort it out. And you're like, you know what these guys do? They work hard. Give them credit. They might not have the high-end talent, but they worked hard. They took advantage of the Oilers' miscues.
So, Struddy, the thing that I want to know, because you watch these guys closely, is what do you see from McDavid? Because we just watched this guy last season lap the field like he was Secretariat, 64 goals. Right now he's got 2. I believe there are some 200 players with more than 2 goals in the NHL right now. Is this an injury thing? Is he just having bad puck luck? What are you seeing from the great 97?
Well, I think we can put it all into the play we saw last night on the power play. He's skating up the ice, and a Shark player pokes it off his stick and goes back the other way and almost scores. In the past, Connor would have skated by that guy, lit up a dart, smoked it, and then taken the puck away from the guy. That's how much faster he was. And I'm talking smoke it down to the butt, till there's nothing left. But last night, he was chasing this guy down. The guy was not pulling away from him, but Connor couldn't catch him. I still think there's some lingering effects from the injury we saw before the Winter Classic outside. I don't think he's 100%. Connor McDavid is so many things to the game, but I don't think he ever cheats effort. I think he always brings his best and plays hard. And he just doesn't have that pull away speed or that, like the puck is fumbling off his stick. It looks like it's not him. It's like who's dressing this guy's jersey tonight, right? It's like someone won an award. So I don't think he's 100%. I think it's limiting him, and I think it's frustrating him. And quite frankly, it's hurting the team. Like, they're used to this guy. I mean, in the past, when the Oilers won a 2-3 game skid, I would say he's going to go nuclear today, and he put up 4 points, and the Oilers would win 5-2, right? Bang. Now, he's unable to do that with, I think, what I believe is an injury. Leon's unable to do it. He has no confidence. And then if you're Nuge or Kane, you see the 2 most dangerous players in the world are unable to do it. You're like, oh my God, I've got to do it. Then you start getting nervous. Now all of a sudden everyone's squeezing their stick and no one's scoring.
Struddy, I just want a quick comment on that play, on that breakaway. If you watch Evan Bouchard, I don't know if he's staring at a fly on the end of his nose or what. Did you see him dump that puck back? Like, it's so casual, so lazy. Instead of dropping it back behind him, it goes sideways and he jams the player up. Those are the plays that drive an analyst, a coach, fan base crazy, because that's a lazy, casual play from a guy who shouldn't be doing that. Like, he, if anything, should be bearing down. So he jams up the best player in the world, and then you're right. All of a sudden, he's got to chase this down, and number 2 skating back with the smoke in his hand, like you're talking about. So it's just, it is, to me, there's too many brain dead plays there with the game within the game. The goal number 3, Darnell Nurse inside the blue line tries a little spinorama play. It gets wedged off, and now it's a 2-on-1. It's in the back of your net. Are they beating themselves out there?
So let's go to the Darnell Nurse play. I love you brought it up because I had a lot of people say, well, he lost a board battle. And I'd say no. You're the left defenseman. There's no one behind you, and you're trying to beat someone one-on-one at the blue line. That comes from trying to do too much. In that moment, all you have to do is just throw it back around behind the net. Your forward will pick you up, and we'll reset and go for it. And I get it. Everyone's trying to do, or not everyone, some players like Darnell, he always brings the effort. And he's trying to do too much. Unfortunately, you do too much, you tie yourself in knots, and then the result is what we saw last night. But it's night after night. It's half pinches where, there's no chance of the D-man getting there, and they pinch, and then the forward's not back-checking, or it's a poor back-check or a bad bounce. And I don't believe in puck luck. I believe you create it by the way you play properly. So you can't say it's puck luck. It's just poor plays. And Matthias Ekholm, when he came over last year, they talked about this idea of being able to comfortable winning games 1-0, 2-0, and I still haven't seen it. I still haven't seen that ability for them to do that. And it's a mindset. It is a mindset. You decide you're going to be really hard all the time, but in those specific moments, like how many times this year have the Oilers scored a goal and the other team scored like the next shift? we're still high-fiving, and all of a sudden the music's playing for the other team, and they're scoring. Like, what just happened? We just got the lead, and it's just crazy that that's happening. But it's like, it's just, I can't believe the Oilers are in this situation. We're talking like this because it's just, a month and 6 weeks ago we're talking about them winning the Stanley Cup. Now you're looking, okay, well, what's the huge move they have to do to get this team back on track, or is there one?
Strutty, we're going to spin the draft lottery simulator later. That's what we're doing out here for you guys. I see Macklin Celebrini on McDavid's wing next year, and I think that's what's needed. Like, it can't be that far off before you guys are spinning the sim on the podcast.
Well, you know what? It's actually scary because you're going into Seattle, a team that they're well coached, they're organized, right? And it doesn't get any easier. But as you said it, you're the last place team in the league. No one's easy. There's no easy nights. There's nothing that you can expect. Like, oh, we got this one tonight's an easy one. So I look at this team and they're way better than they're showing. Like, I do believe they're better than they've shown.
Of course.
But the problem is, at some point, you have to show it. You can't just keep saying that this is who we are and we have a belief in this team. Like, I believe in you too, but at some point you have to deliver. You can't just keep saying it.
And extensively, right? Like, it's not just deliver in Seattle. Like, they got to run off like 7-8 wins in a row just to get back into it. You look at their own division. LA is 14 points up on them. Vancouver is 16 points up. It's November 10th. That's got to be the most shocking discrepancy you can think of, considering it's two Canadian teams. It's wild.
I'll say this, honestly, I'm not even worried about making the playoffs if I'm the Oilers. I'm trying to have a good period. I want to play a good first period and just take it shift by shift. Because they haven't put together, maybe that Calgary game, the outdoor Calgary game where Noodles, although he denies it, was pounding popcorn out there. Like, I had another person confirm it. This guy loves the popcorn and a Coke. I don't know what is your problem, but just admit it. Anyways, I don't want to get off track. You need to put together shift after shift after shift. And then, if I was Jay, I got to split Connor and Leon up. I'm sorry. Put it on to empower, 3 lines to get out there and get them going and work your fourth in, when you're possible. But they need to get on some rhythm. They're changing lines all the time, and it's like they just got to get shit one period, then worry about the next period, then you win a game. Okay, good. Okay, let's try to have another good period. So that'd be 4 good periods in a row. And then you try to build like that, because right now the idea of winning 6, 7, 8 games in a row, I think they should hope to win 6, 7 shifts in a row. Mm-hmm. That's how inconsistent this team's been, guys.
Well, what do you say to the math and calculator people that have, I'm just reading one where their chances for are second in the league. Their scoring chances for are fourth in the league. Their high danger chances for are number 1 in the league. Their expected goals for are number 1 in the league. But the PDO is 30th. The save percentage is 30th. So there's a lot of analytics guys out there saying, like, eventually this is going to come because of the shot volume, because of the chances they're creating. But the only question mark is, are they going to get the goaltending and the defense? But, the drying up of the offense, it does seem a little bit weird based on some of the stuff they are creating.
Yeah, and I listen, I look at those things and I 100% understand what they say and I appreciate it. The problem is, how do you get it to go work when everyone on the team, zero confidence? Right, so it's easy to say, well, they're going to regress back to the norm. Well, what's going to happen? Like, you don't just lose 30 pounds just because you wake up and decide you want to lose 30 pounds. You have to put time in. You have to work at it. So these Oilers, they're in a massive hole confidence-wise. So I believe at some point in the future, a week, 6 months, or 2 years, they'll find their confidence again. But you have to find a way to get your confidence back, because they're right, they are getting chances. But you look like, not to pick on him, but Leon Draisaitl, the last few years, has been money. Off to the left of the goalie, it's money. It's in the net. This year, he's misfiring. His stick is falling off. He's hitting the side of the net. Like that, he looks like a left-handed Jesse Puljujärvi over there. His confidence is zero. So I get what they're saying. I understand it will come back. But the problem is, how do you get it from here to where it's back. And that's got to be with the players and, quite frankly, with the coaches to help these guys get that confidence back. But it's not just going to happen overnight. The problem is, by the time it happens, old Brian Hayes will have his wheel of fortune spinning it around, trying to figure out whether it's the Leafs or the Oilers. They're getting the first pick.
Yeah, well, that's true. That would be something.
Strutty, the one question the fans have is, you still have a flip phone, right? Because you've been like you're literally
the worst reception in Canada. Worse
I
than
don't
the
know
Oilers.
what it is. Are you talking on a headset or you got your phone in your pocket? Like,
No, I'm driving to Calgary. My son has a U11 tournament, a big tournament down in Cochrane, Alberta. If anyone wants to come say hi, free hugs.
All right, free hugs for the Strutty crew in Cochrane, Alberta. Beautiful. God's country out there. That's what I've heard, Dave. I've heard it's great.
Beautiful.
All right, well, there you go. That would explain it because
It's got a flip phone.
Yeah,
You would've made it.
everything out of Alberta is disappointing right now, including this cell reception, Strutty. But what are you going to do? Enjoy yourself there, buddy, and we appreciate you doing this. I know this was a tough invitation to accept today. There can't always be wins. It can't always be rosy on this show. We'll do it again
We'll see you,
soon.
boys.
All right, buddy.
Good to see ya.
There's Jason Strudwick. Yeah, things are.
He does have a flip phone too.
He probably does have a flip phone. Yeah,
Sounded
I
like
swear
one.
to God.
yeah, the old school flip phone. Some because he was saying things and it just kept cutting out. Like it was enough where you could understand where he was going,
Yeah.
but everything out of Alberta right now is really troublesome. It's just
Wow.
not a
I
good
mean, the
scene.
Flames have won a couple in a row.
Yeah, I
like,
guess
that's
you're
it.
right.
I wouldn't sleep on them.
Well,
like they're
isn't this like this? If you're Jonathan Huberdeau, aren't you looking at the Leafs' defense and the way that they've played recently, saying, "I have to have a coming out party tonight"?
Right. If you're Nazem Kadri.
If you're Kadri
no bigger
back
platform.
home,
No bigger platform right now.
Hall
you
of
know?
Famers in the house, Friday night in Toronto, right? It's a lot of people are going to be tracking this game tonight. So the Leafs better be ready to play because after you got tonight, tomorrow, then you're off to Sweden.
Yeah.
And who the hell knows what's going to happen over there?
I think I know we're trying to grow the game, all of that. I'm sorry, I hate it. I don't know why. It messes with time zones, all of that. You don't know how players are going to react coming back from that. Like and again, it's a pay grade way above me, but it's just, I like the games where you can sit down and watch them. You can go to them right here, and they're not at 2:00. What are they? 2:00.
They
games,
play
I
at
think?
2:00. They play an 8 a.m. game, I believe, over
8 a.m.
there.
game against Minnesota.
Yeah, which would be whatever, 2:00 in Stockholm or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're talking a 2:00 game, an 8 a.m. game, and then they come home and they play Friday in Chicago, U.S. Thanksgiving at 2:00.
Yeah.
Again, so they play like their next 3 games after tomorrow night, I believe, where they're barely going to be playing for 2 weeks, are going to be afternoon and morning games.
Yeah, they got 6 days off between.
Yeah.
Well, they got to win. These games are crucial too because when you're not playing lots, I know like you look at the games played, but if teams start passing you in the standings, it messes with your psyche as well too, right? Like that's the other thing. If you only play 4 games in 2 weeks and other teams are playing 7 or 8 and they start to make up some points,
Yeah.
like I know you look at point percentage, but it's still not. You know, I mentally I would always look at that and see where we were in the standings. Based on the points,
Yeah,
not
it's bank points.
percentage, right?
Yeah, it's bank points. And you want to have a positive feeling if you're going on a trip like this. And if you lose tonight, lose tomorrow, it's just not going to happen because the media is going to follow you. People will
6
be over
days
there.
off of talking about 2 losses.
Exactly.
Great.
Not ideal.
Yeah.
All right, Mike Johnson in about 15 minutes. Johnny will have the call tonight. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Mike Johnson coming up. Luke Wilson still to come as well. We got games to pick. The Thursday nighter last night. Honestly, the highlight of the game was Jason Kelsey in the booth.
Yes.
That was the best part of the night.
It was.
Like he was great
He was
in the booth.
tremendous.
He was awesome talking about the tush push, his role in that, why it's so successful, what he has to do, what it looks like from his vantage point. Really honest about, the fact that they're 8-1 and people are wondering if they've played their best football. And he's like, no, I totally agree. We can
Yeah.
get better. Better
Yeah.
in the red zone, better with turnovers, et cetera. Like, you think of centers in football, like Jeff Saturday's a big personality now.
Right.
And he played center, obviously, for all those years. But, like, Kelsey, when he retires, I don't know if he wants to get into media. He may just keep doing his podcast. I'll bet you he's making a fortune doing that.
Right.
But, man, is he going to be a sought-after figure, Jason
Big
Kelsey.
time.
Sexiest man alive.
Sexiest man
Well,
alive.
he might be.
that.
Yeah, that's right.
might be Taylor Swift's brother-in-law as well. You
Well,
never
that's
know.
true.
Right.
I mean, he wouldn't answer where Travis was last night.
yeah?
I listen. It's their bye week; they can go anywhere. But I'm pretty sure Taylor Swift's in Argentina right
South
now.
America, yeah.
Yeah, that's a long flight, man.
Yeah.
It's a long flight. But, yeah, Eagles and Chiefs are both on a bye, so that was cool last night. The game itself played out like we thought it would play out.
Who won it?
It
Did
was
you win?
Chicago. No, it was a push. The line was 3.
Wow.
So I took Carolina, but it was a 3-point game, 3-point spread. So it's all good. We move on. More picks later this afternoon. Hour 2 coming up. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.